This is Part 2, Episode 11. The air in the valley seemed to solidify the instant those words left Lin Dong's mouth, while the mighty earth-splitting tiger stared at Lin Dong with a savage glint in his eyes. So you have the same goal as the rest of them. The mighty earth-splitting tiger opened his mouth, revealing its sharp and frightening white fangs. There is no free lunch in this world. If it wasn't for my help today, not only would you have lost the heavenly devil tiger bone, you might have even lost your life. Lin Dong replied indifferently. And I have made myself clear that you must pay the price if you want me to assist you. You should have already guessed what price I was talking about at that time. Since you have already promised me, based on your current words, it seems like you were deliberately trying to trick me. Under Lin Dong's straw hat, an icy glint swept across his eyes. I cannot deny that you have indeed helped me. However, I am preparing to use the heavenly devil tiger bone to break through the second nirvana tribulation. I will never give it to you. The mighty earth-splitting tiger spoke hesitantly while its eyes contained uncertainty. I have some nirvana pills in my hands and I can offer them to you as your remuneration. Lin Dong's brows creased subtly. Obviously, things were not going smoothly as he had expected it to be. Apparently, it was not an easy task to make the mighty earth-splitting tiger give up the heavenly demonic tiger's bone obediently. Seeing Lin Dong remain silent, fear flashed across the mighty earth-splitting tiger's eyes. Then, it casted a glance at the blood-soul puppet behind Lin Dong. It knew that if they were to fight, it might not be able to gain an upper hand against the combined forces of Lin Dong and the blood-soul puppet. Hey, there's no need for such a tense situation. Just as the atmosphere in the valley froze, the lazy voice of little Martin finally reverberated through the air. Then, it appeared on Lin Dong's shoulder while wobbling its body. Demonic spirit. The mighty earth-splitting tiger was startled when he saw little Martin appeared on Lin Dong's shoulder. Soon after, a twinge of somberness and fear gushed through its eyes. Even though little Martin was petite in size, for some reasons, the mighty earth-splitting tiger could sense a faint overwhelming pressure from it. Hey, lunkhead. Don't tell me you are thinking about keeping the heavenly devil tiger bone and implant it into your body during the nirvana tribulation. If that's the case, Grandpa Martin think you won't be able to live long. The bloodline of heavenly demonic tiger race is overbearing, and with your mediocre physique, even if you forcefully fuse with it, you will not be able to display its powers. Instead, you might have more to lose if your bones are incompatible. Little Martin shot a glance at the mighty earth-splitting tiger and warned. Upon hearing these words, the mighty earth-splitting tiger's facial expression changed, but surprisingly, it did not refute little Martin. It did have this notion all along, and it also clearly knew that it was extremely dangerous to do this. It is extremely difficult to pass through the nirvana tribulation. Without the heavenly demonic tiger's bone, I might as well be considered as dead, so I rather take the risk, the mighty earth-splitting tiger uttered in a low voice. When the tiger faced little Martin, the aggression in the former's voice toned down unconsciously. Through the unique connection between demonic beasts, it could detect that the seemingly tiny little Martin appeared to hide an aggression that was stronger than itself by countless times. You seem determined to pass through the second nirvana tribulation. Forget about it. I can see that you have put in the effort to cultivate till this level. Grandpa Martin shall not use those typical threatening tactics against you. Little Martin said with its claw under its chin. Soon after, with a grasp of its other claw, a glowing bamboo strip appeared in that claw. This is a unique body transformation martial art practiced by the species of dark abyss tiger. If you can master it, your chances of passing through the nirvana tribulation should increase by around 30%. The dark abyss tiger's body transformation martial art. Upon hearing these words, the mighty earth-splitting tiger could not help but lose its voice momentarily. The dark abyss tiger was one of the 3 great tiger species, and their body transformation martial art was remarkably formidable. This was considered a priceless treasure to those tiger-type demonic beasts. It could not believe that the glowing bamboo strip in little Martin's claw is actually the legendary martial art. Little Martin paid no attention to the greatly astonished mighty earth-splitting tiger, and threw the glowing bamboo strip to the tiger. Upon seeing this, the mighty earth-splitting tiger hastily catched the glowing bamboo strip, and the glowing bamboo strip then materialized into an enormous amount of information that flowed straight into the tiger's mind. This is indeed the dark abyss tiger's body transformation martial art. The mighty earth-splitting tiger's eyes shone brightly as the amazing information disseminated in his mind. Lunkhead, hand over the heavenly devil tiger bone now, little Martin darted a glance at the delighted mighty earth-splitting tiger, and pouted slightly. Although this martial art might not be exceptionally powerful amongst the species of the dark abyss tiger, it was still a prized treasure to the mighty earth-splitting tiger. Having heard the words, a tinge of hesitation swiped across the eyes of the overjoyed mighty earth-splitting tiger. Then, it mumbled, "So this martial art can only increase my success rate by 30%. Little Martin narrowed its eyes with disdain and the tone of its voice turned flat. "Lunkhead, my patience for you is going to run out soon. There hasn't been anyone in this world who refuses to comply after receiving benefits from me." As these words hung in the air, little Martin suddenly took a step forward and levitated in mid-air. A faint enormous shadow formed behind its body. That shadow's wings, which were so gigantic that they could cover the heaven and earth, began to flap lightly. An aura that made the mighty earth-splitting tiger trembled in compliance propagated through the area silently. Celestial Demon Martin. The mighty earth-splitting tiger stared at the gigantic shadow behind little Martin in horror, and its body broke out in a cold all of a sudden. Clearly, it was no stranger to this species, which would even be considered as the elite in Demon City. "Lord Celestial Demon Martin, please do not be angry. I shall bring forth the heavenly devil tiger bone to you now." However, this mighty earth-splitting tiger was quick-witted. The tiger knew that little Martin was infuriated by looking at the latter's appearance, and it did not dare to procrastinate any further. It then swiftly rushed into its cave. Seeing the back view of the frightened tiger, little Martin withdrew the humongous shadow, and the terrifying aura was gone with it as well. Little Martin smirked and seemed proud of itself as it returned to Lin Dong's shoulder. "Did you see this? This is the mightiness of Grandpa Martin. Now, you should know how domineering and scary the race of Celestial Demon Martin are." Lin Dong spread his hands and paid no notice to the pompous fellow, and set his gaze at the cave entrance. Soon, urgent and heavy footsteps could be heard. After a while, the mighty earth-splitting tiger reappeared. However, this time around, there was a 30 meters huge, black-colored skeleton on the tiger's shoulder. Boom! The black skeleton was solidly placed on the ground, and in that instant, the entire valley trembled a little. Even Lin Dong was shaken by that impressive weight. Then, he threw a scrutinizing look at the skeleton. The skeleton was wholly pitch black and flickered with a metallic luster, as if it was made of black steel. Even though only a set of tiger bones was left, there was still an aura of dominance and ferocity emitting from deep within the bones. Under the diffusion of such overwhelming aura, even the mighty earth-splitting tiger could not help but to retreat a few steps away. Its eyes were flashing with zealousness and reluctance as it stared at the tiger bones. Lin Dong clicked his tongue twice. Based on the shape of the skeleton, he could make a rough judgment of the beast's appearance when it was still alive. It was indeed the shape of a tiger. Imagined if the heavenly demonic tiger was still alive, how overbearing and mind-trembling its aura would be. The heavenly demonic tiger's reputation, as one of the three great tiger types, demonic beasts, was not undeserving indeed. Little Martin landed on top of the heavenly demonic tiger's skeleton, but it did not cower under the influence of the overbearing aura exuded by the skeleton. It then pat on the bones with its claws and nodded his head at Lin Dong, acknowledging, "This is indeed the heavenly demonic tiger's bone." Having heard little Martin's acknowledgement, Lin Dong deeply heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, he had gotten it, and with this, little flame could attain the nirvana stage and leave its beast form. Lin Dong bent down and examined the set of skeleton. Under the reluctant gaze of the mighty earth-splitting tiger, Lin Dong swung his sleeve and kept the skeleton in his chinkuan bag. "Ha ha, thanks a lot for this gift." Knowing that the tiger's skeleton was in his hands, Lin Dong felt rather jovial and laughed at the mighty earth-splitting tiger, who was still glaring at him. The mighty earth-splitting tiger laughed bitterly as it shook his head. However, when it thought about the martial art that he had just obtained, it felt a little less gloomier. Given Celestial Demon Martin's status, the tiger knew that the former would not toy around with it. Hence, it seems like this martial art should be legitimate. We still have other things to do, so we shall not stay any further. Mate, I think that you should leave this place as well. Those guys earlier on will not give up so easily. Once Lin Dong obtained the thing he needed, he did not have any intentions to stay on. All right. The mighty earth-splitting tiger nodded his head. Even though it intended to kill Chen Mo and his gang, it also understood that he was not on the winning side in terms of numbers, and he alone could not contend against them. It seemed like it had to retreat to those secluded inner sanctums of the mountain to train peacefully. Until the day it became stronger, then could it tore through space and time to leave the ancient battlefield. Take care. Lin Dong bidded farewell to the tiger, and with a jolt of his body, he flew out of the Beast Valley. At the same time, little Martin materialized in a red glow, and went back into Lin Dong's body. Looking at the back of Lin Dong, who was now far away, the mighty earth-splitting tiger heaved a sigh of relief. The aura exuded by little Martin made him feel somewhat unbearable. It was the kind of condescending oppression that a superior exerted on an inferior. The legendary celestial demon Martin is indeed scary. After leaving the Beast Valley, Lin Dong did not immediately leave the depths of the mountain. Instead, he flew towards the inner sanctum of the mountain range that were inaccessible to outsiders. Little Flame was going to fuse with the heavenly demonic tiger's bones and use this to attack Nirvana stage. When that moment arrived, it would definitely attract a lot of attention. Therefore, these remoted areas would be the most suitable. After flying towards the inner sanctum of the mountain range for a few hours, Lin Dong gradually decided on his destination. Finally, he landed on an enormous and steep mountain peak. The mountain reached up till 10,000 meters tall, and it was bolted upright, making it extremely steep. Clouds and mist surrounded the mountain summit, making it hard for one to observe what was going on atop it. Here's the place. Lin Dong's figure landed on the mountain summit. After glancing around the area, he then nodded his head with satisfactory. With a pull of his sleeves, Little Flame leapt out from within. At the same time, little Martin leisurely appeared. It then casted a glance at Little Flame and said, "Stupid tiger, Grandpa Martin knows that you already possessed some level of spiritual intelligence now. Therefore, I want to explain clearly to you that even though you possess a transforming physique, your bloodline is far too mediocre, and it even pales in comparison to the mighty earth-shaking tigers. Hence, it will be quite dangerous for you to fuse with the heavenly demonic tiger's bones." Upon hearing these words, Li Dong's facial expression changed slightly. It seemed like he wanted to say something, though he did not do so eventually. Little Flame was merely an ordinary fire python tiger, and if it were not for its rare transforming physique, it could not have reached this level in its entire lifetime. Your bloodline is far too mediocre. Even if you possess the rare transforming physique, due to your bloodline, your ability is severely limited. Thus, if you really want to be more powerful, you will have to take this risk. Otherwise, I think that it's better for Lin Dong to send you back to the Great Yang Empire in the future. The outside world is far too dangerous and you are not powerful enough. Therefore, you will only be a deadweight to Lin Dong if you continue to follow him, Little Martin said indifferently. Little Flame's tiger eyes were shimmering gently. Clearly, it understood what Little Martin had meant. Following which, Little Flame's gaze stopped on Lin Dong and then, it let out a deep and low roar. Even though Lin Dong could not understand the meaning behind Little Flame's roar, he could sense the decision that Little Flame had made. Soon after, he heaved a deep breath and looked at Little Martin and said, "Let's do it. I will have to leave it to you. As a matter of fact, this stupid tiger is rather brave. That's good too. If you can pass through this ordeal, you shall undergo a metamorphosis," Little Martin chuckled. Soon after, Little Martin's eyes became gradually somber and it nodded its head slowly. Boom. Lin Dong waved his sleeves before the pitch-black, black metal-like heavenly demonic tiger's bones landed heavily on the floor. Meanwhile, a faint tyrannical aura pervaded the air. To fuse the heavenly demonic tiger's bones into its body, we must first take out its bones. In a nutshell, we need to remove the original tiger bones. This step is rather dangerous as a slight mistake would destroy its bones and kill the beast, Little Martin warned with a low voice as it looked at the intimidating heavenly demonic tiger's bones. Lin Dong, 200,000 Nirvana pills. Upon hearing Little Martin's yell, Lin Dong tossed out his Chinkuan bag without any hesitations. Immediately, numerous perfectly round and fiery Nirvana pills whizzed through the air and became a huge energy current that gathered at the mountain peak. As the Nirvana chi diffused through the air, the entire mountain seemed to be blazing with flames all of a sudden. Nirvana flames, freeze. Little Martin's hand seal began to change. Numerous purplish dark light beams shot out of its claws and went right through the huge energy current that was made up of the Nirvana chi. Boom boom. As the light beams entered, the energy current suddenly became warped. In a flash, scarlet flames erupted from the energy current. Meanwhile, under the burning of the intense flames, even the space of nothingness showed signs of distortion. Little Flame, if you can't endure this step, you won't be able to proceed with the rest of the procedure, Little Martin said with a grave look on its face. With a swipe of its claw, the Nirvana flames swooped down and engulfed Little Flame's body. As the Nirvana flames engulfed Little Flame's body, Lin Dong could see with his own eyes that the scale armor on the latter's body melted in an instant. Roar! A mournful roar came out from the raging Nirvana flames and resounded throughout the mountain range. Lin Dong looked at the intense Nirvana flames, where Little Flame was struggling frantically, without batting an eyelid. Indistinctly, Lin Dong could see that Little Flame's body was becoming increasingly distorted under the blazing flames. It was as if its flesh were cooked into a liquid-like state. The mournful roar continued for around 10 minutes before gradually fading away. However, this did not mean that the pain was over. It was merely because Little Flame's mouth was being burned away, and it could no longer roar. Within the raging Nirvana flames, Little Flame's body was gradually becoming a ball of badly mangled flesh. If it were not for the weak signal of life that Lin Dong could still sense, he would have thought that Little Flame had already lost its life. Take out the tiger bones. A fierce look swiped across Little Martin's eyes. As Little Martin stretched forwards its claws, the purplish dark light beams materialized into a huge hand. The hand reached into the Nirvana flames and pierced right through the ball of bloody mess, and then made a ferocious tug. A set of death pale, slightly warped tiger bones was ripped out from the ball of flesh by Little Martin. As Lin Dong saw this scene, his body trembled involuntarily and both his palms were tightly clenched. He could feel the terrifying agony that Little Flame was going through at this moment. The sight of burning body and removing of bones would make ordinary people trembled with fear. Yet this situation was actually being displayed by Little Flame now. Lin Dong, the heavenly demonic tiger's bones. Little Martin's somberness was intimidating, and at the same time, its yell rang across Lin Dong's ears. Bang! Lin Dong fiercely clenched his teeth, and blasted his palm onto the heavenly demonic tiger's bones. Accompanied by a metallic-like sound, the bones flew straight into the Nirvana flames. At the moment when the heavenly demonic tiger's bones entered the Nirvana flames, the ball of mangled flesh wiggled frantically as it had sensed something. Following which, the flesh entwined with the bones bit by bit. Bang! As the flesh entwined with the heavenly demonic tiger's bones, the latter emitted a dark radiance that attempted to bounce off the flesh completely. Even so, the flesh still persevered unremittingly in entwining with the bones like a sticky candy. The heavenly demonic tiger's bones still contained the heavenly demonic tiger's imprint. This will resist the fusion with Little Flame. However, there's nothing much we can do and it solely depends on Little Flame to overcome it itself, Little Martin said as it wiped off the sweat on its forehead and stared at the Nirvana flames. Furthermore, Little Flame's demonic spirit is integrated with its flesh. However, it can stay in this state for only an hour. If it can't fuse with the heavenly demonic tiger's bones within an hour, it will lose its life. Lin Dong nodded his head silently. Then, he sat down cross-leggedly and stared at the flames without batting an eyelid. His heartbeat quickened unconsciously as well. The fight between the flesh and the tiger bones continued for nearly half an hour in the intense flames. As time passed, Lin Dong's eyes were getting increasingly bloodshot. This made Little Martin shook its head helplessly. It had never seen Lin Dong losing control of his emotions like this after knowing the latter for so long. Another 10 minutes passed and soon, an hour would have passed. Finally, Lin Dong could help, but stood up and nervously paced to and fro. Lin Dong's footsteps stopped and he raised his head abruptly. Then, he scurried forward and threw his hands into the Nirvana flames involuntarily. He knew that if this dragged on any further, Little Flame might really lose its life on the spot. Boom! However, just as Lin Dong's hands were about to make contact with the Nirvana flames, the raging Nirvana flames expanded abruptly. That impact pushed Lin Dong backward several steps. Don't be rash, Lin Dong. Little Martin appeared in front of Lin Dong and stared tightly at the Nirvana flames. It seemed that the fight within the flames had stopped. Vaguely, an enormous creature could be seen standing silently in the midst of the flames. A fearsome aura, which was numerous times stronger than the heavenly demonic tigers a few days ago, swept across the area. It was as if a prehistoric beast had awakened. Did we succeed? Lin Dong's eye pupils dilated as he sensed the exceedingly fearsome aura. Roar! Under the attentive gazes from Lin Dong and Little Martin, within the Nirvana flames, the enormous creature raised its head and let out a deafening tiger roar that echoed through the air. As the spine-chilling and powerful tiger roar echoed through the air, numerous demonic beasts in the mountain range trembled with fear and trepidation. The might of the heavenly demonic tiger. Little Martin muttered as elation gushed through its eyes. The tiger roar majestically resounded through heaven and earth. Following which, the raging nirvana flames pour frantically into the body of the enormous creature, as if it was being attracted to something. At the same time, the hovering energy current transformed into blazing nirvana chi, and descended in a steady flow. Finally, these nirvana chi were completely devoured by that enormous creature. This stupid tiger is preparing to attack the nirvana stage. Little Martin laughed as it saw this scene. From its laughter, it seemed that Little Martin had a load off its mind. Lin Dong dropped his body and sat back onto the ground. His heavy heart had finally settled down. Scarlet red flames burst out from the flood of nirvana pills, like giant scarlet red dragons, before being continuously absorbed by the humongous figure on the mountaintop below. Currently, the mountaintop was shaking as if there was an earthquake due to the powerful aftershocks, while an astonishing pressure continuously seeped out from the humongous figure. In the face of this berserk nirvana chi, even Lin Dong retreated several steps as he solemnly watched this scene. Although the rate at which Little Flame absorbed nirvana chi could not compare to himself, who possessed the devouring ancestral symbol, this speed had already far surpassed some nirvana practitioners. Moreover, due to Little Flame's alarming rate of absorption, the flood formed from 200,000 nirvana pills shrunk at a rate which could be seen with the naked eye. This fellow has such a good appetite. While he watched the quickly disappearing nirvana pill flood, Lin Dong could not help but slowly inhale. When it breaks through to the nirvana stage, the nirvana chi will temper it, allowing its blood and flesh to better fuse with the heavenly devil tiger bone. In the future, this fellow will be like a carp leaping through the dragon's gate, transforming directly from an ordinary fire python tiger into a heavenly devil tiger. Little Martin grinned as it observed the situation and explained. Of course, this is not full story. It should be a heavenly devil tiger that possesses a transforming physique. TCH. I truly wonder what level this stupid tiger will be able to reach. Lin Dong smiled a little as his clenched fist slowly relaxed. He felt particularly happy as he watched the rebirth of this companion who had accompanied him for many years. Attacking the nirvana stage was obviously not something that could be completed in a short time. Even with Little Flame undergoing a metamorphosis, it still took a whole day before completely absorbing the nirvana chi formed from 200,000 nirvana pills. In addition, after absorbing the 200,000 nirvana pills, Little Flame's breakthrough was clearly still not fully complete. Upon seeing this, Lin Dong immediately tossed out another 300,000 nirvana pills. Such a huge amount caused Little Martin to make a little noise. Lin Dong only had about 1.5 million nirvana pills, which he had practically risked his life for, yet, he had fished out almost a third of it just for Little Flame. Even practitioners from various high-rank empires would find it difficult to enjoy such a luxury. As long as this fellow can absorb it all, giving all my remaining nirvana pills to him will not be a problem. When he heard Little Martin grumble, Lin Dong merely laughed as he declared. For the sake of becoming stronger and staying by his side, Little Flame had endured even the pain of extracting its bones. How could his contribution of merely nirvana pills compare? Let us see exactly what this fellow will transform into next, Little Martin lazily said before raising its head as the burning scarlet flames reflected in its eyes. After Lin Dong once again cast in 300,000 nirvana pills, Little Flame clearly possessed enough nirvana chi again. To absorb such an enormous amount of nirvana chi, it used an entire 3 days and nights. After 3 full days, Little Flame's body was now completely engulfed by nirvana fire. While its body was as still as a statue within the flames, terrifying undulations that were hammered into shape by the raging inferno stealthily spread outwards. When dawn of the 4th day embraced the mountain range, the vast flood of nirvana pills had already become extremely sparse, while the nirvana fire that enveloped the enormous figure had also weakened substantially. Evidently, the 300,000 nirvana pills had already been thoroughly absorbed by Little Flame. Lin Dong silently sat on a rock atop the mountain peak. His unblinking gaze was glued onto the figure within the flames. Over the past 4 days, his eyes had not rested for even a moment, but not only was he not the least bit tired, there was instead an extremely intense expectation and curiosity in his eyes. Boom! Nirvana fire soared into the air as the enormous figure within seemed to tremble violently before suddenly raising its head. As it opened its huge mouth, the remaining nirvana pills and nirvana fire in the sky was completely devoured by it. As the last wisps of nirvana fire was swallowed into its body, the enormous figure finally clearly appeared before Lin Dong's and little Martin's eyes. It was a giant tiger that was pitch black like ink. When the rays of the sun shined upon its body, it gave off a metallic luster. Humongous black wings were folded on its back, while the squirming feathers on them seemed to flicker with an icy cold glint that was as sharp as the edge of a blade. In the face of this icy cold glint, even Nirvana stage practitioners would shiver. Moreover, its tiger eyes that appeared pitch black faintly seemed to give off an endless aura of brutality. It was just like a peerless, ferocious tiger from a savage land. Roar! The giant black tiger roared at the sky, resulting in an almost solid sound wave sweeping outwards. Immediately, the mountain peak split apart, forming an enormous crack. At the same time, a ferocious and vigorous to the extreme aura suddenly exploded from its body. The aura was one that had truly reached the Nirvana stage. Evidently, Little Flame had advanced to the Nirvana stage. Success! Astonishing delight abruptly shot out from Lin Dong's eyes. Little Flame had finally reached the Nirvana stage. Just as the delighted Lin Dong was about to stand up, the giant black tiger that Little Flame had transformed into did not immediately pounce over, but instead roared at Lin Dong before sitting down like a human. Meanwhile, Lin Dong felt an undulation that made even his scalp feel numb abruptly spread out from Little Flame's body. The instant this undulation spread outwards, Little Flame's metallic black body strangely turned scarlet red, while plumes of white smoke constantly emerged from its body. Creak! The surface of the mountain peak started to dry up at an alarming rate. Numerous cracks spread out as the forest on the mountain peak instantly wilted. What's going on? As he watched Little Flame, Lin Dong's expression immediately changed as he urgently asked. This fellow. Little Martin was also shocked for a moment, before it solemnly watched the now seated Little Flame and muttered, "It's actually starting the Nirvana tribulation. It plans to pass the Nirvana tribulation." What? Lin Dong's body violently trembled, clearly greatly alarmed by this. He shouted in a low voice, "What is this brat doing? How can it dare to so careless attempt the Nirvana tribulation?" The Nirvana tribulation was the greatest fear of Nirvana practitioners. Among those of the Nirvana stage, more than 50% fell not in battle, but during the Nirvana tribulation. Every Nirvana tribulation was extremely terrifying, and the slightest slip would cause all of one's cultivation to be completely destroyed, causing one had to everything transform into dust. Thus, this explained why Lin Dong's expression had turned so grim when he heard that Little Flame dared to challenge the Nirvana tribulation immediately after reaching the Nirvana stage. No need to be so worried. This stupid tiger has fused with the heavenly devil tiger bone, and it is likely the remnant energy within the tiger bone that forced it to start the Nirvana tribulation. However, this is good. Since the Nirvana tribulation was initiated from within, if it successfully passes, it will be able to perfectly fuse with the heavenly devil tiger bone, and no longer face the tiniest bit of rejection. Little Martins twinkled in thought as it explained. When this fellow advanced to the Nirvana stage, its intelligence had also greatly increased. If it knew that it had no chance, it would not dare to be so reckless. In any case, there is no point in worrying now, let's just wait and see. In the end, Little Martin helplessly sighed. Evidently, the development of this situation was out of its expectations. Lin Dong's eyebrows were tightly knitted together, and could only gravely nod his head. He lifted his head as he watched the now scarlet-red Little Flame, while his originally calmed-down heart started to thud violently once again. In the next half a day, the terrifyingly hot undulations from Little Flame's body grew stronger and stronger. In the end, even Lin Dong and Little Martin could not longer endure, and were forced to withdraw from the 100-foot radius around the mountain peak. Only when they exited the mountain peak did they realize that all the trees within a 100-foot radius of the peak had withered completely, an extremely spectacular sight. The Nirvana tribulation is indeed frightening. No wonder Nirvana practitioners view it as if it were a peerless beast. Lin Dong could not help but mutter when he saw this sight. Although he had yet to personally experience it, just thinking about how much destruction such terrifying undulations exploding from within his body could cause was enough to make him feel fearful. The terrifying undulations from the mountain peak lasted for a whole half a day. Only when the night slowly started to creep across the land did Lin Dong finally sense the terrifying undulations begin to swiftly disperse. Is the Nirvana tribulation over? When he sensed this, Lin Dong's instantly became alert as he hastily cast his gaze towards the mountaintop. Due to the high temperature, the mountaintop was covered in mist, and for a time, nothing could be clearly seen. Boom. The moment Lin Dong cast his gaze towards the mountaintop, a heavy thud echoed out from the thick white mist. Almost immediately after, Lin Dong watched as a figure slowly walked out from the white mists. Part 2 end here.